what are the top issues that younger voters and younger people who have political aspirations, where are they finding common ground?
First, how you build economic opportunity that makes sense for younger people, especially in states that are losing their young people. So, how you attract and retain young talent as a workforce development issue is definitely an area we've seen a lot of action. Gun reform is definitely a big one as well. But I also think, criminal justice reform is one that may not be explicitly seen as a next gen kind of issue. But you really see a lot of the creative solutions coming from these younger legislators to, for example, deal with the fundamental issue of how you give people a real second chance in terms of expunging criminal records so people can get jobs, so they can get loans and financing to be able to start new businesses and become entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in that space. And I also think another big one is just what some people might call government reform, but just making government work better. And part of that, democracy reform. We see, for example, a ton of cross partisan action to end partisan gerrymandering. The state of Ohio is where we had a particular win there. Or there's a new conversation about how we can open up primaries and get rid of the partisan primary, which I know sounds like a unsexy process issue, but it's one of the sexiest ways to get and incentivize elected officials to work together on behalf of the public. So I think democracy reform is also a big issue. We found a lot of traction. And then the final one related to that is anti-corruption. Um, there is a system of legalized bribery right now in Congress, and you see this perpetual mm, like race for self-preservation, which also calls into question the need for term limits. I think those type of issues are also big areas where younger people in particular are interested in working.
The idea of term limits or age limits or anything like that, how do you get people to vote against their best interest? Because
Yeah,
they're incented to stay in office. And I get that younger younger people with political aspirations, yeah, they're going to be in favor of that. But once they get in, how do you how do
yeah.
you get them to vote for these things?
Very fair question. Easy answer, which is you grandfather people in. And so the leading proposal is that bipartisan right now with members like Ro Khanna, progressive Democrat, Mike Gallagher, conservative Republican, who want term limits, is to say that it applies to new members coming in because you're right. Otherwise, you have members often voting against their own self-interest. But let me also highlight that not all members of Congress are created equal, obviously, and that's not just a partisan thing. It's also kind of a mission statement divide that I've seen. Because yes, there are a number of members who are there for self-preservation. A lot of the newer, younger members I've found are more interested in seeing public service as a gig as opposed to a career. And so you would see if you actually put term limits up for a vote in Congress, you'd see a substantial number of people who vote for it even for themselves. I know a number of members of Congress, like a former member named Chris Gibson from New York, for example, who self-term limit themselves to say 3 terms. I've seen a few other approaches, but people who really want to, model what they want to see and promote the idea of a citizen legislature where you're not there for 40 years, but instead you go in and make a difference. So there are a number of solutions to this, and I think more people than you would expect in Congress would actually vote for term limits on themselves.